Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I want to talk to you about one of the greatest stories that I've ever witnessed, Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, this is a Western game. Full disclosure, I don't really like Westerns. I've only had a few that I watched and liked. However, Red Dead Redemption 2 is the best depiction of a Western setting that I've seen. It felt very real. It seemed like they basically did a lot of research on Wikipedia to craft this story, and it shows. It feels more like a period piece in the form of a game. But I want to focus on Arthur Morgan. He is quite possibly the best depiction of a protagonist that I've ever seen. I would say that he is the shining example of what a protagonist should be and what writers should somewhat aspire to create with their protagonists. In all honesty, Arthur Morgan feels like a character that already existed, and they just copied his story and presented it to us. So in this video, I want to share some of my opinions on Arthur Morgan and what I think really works well with, the character as a whole. Let's begin. So to summarize, Arthur Morgan is a part of the Vanderlyn gang under Dutch Vanderlyn. Arthur is actually an orphan, and he was taken in under Dutch and Hosea Matthews. Dutch and Hosea are very close friends. It's kinda obvious to say, but Arthur actually sees Dutch and Hosea as father figures.
Why don't we just fish here? There's a whole lake of them.
Because I need to get out for a bit. Me and the old guard. Before any of them back there, there was us.
The curious couple and their unruly son.
It feels good here. You did well finding that spot, Arthur.
More Charles than me.
And there does seem to be some level of progressive ideals in Arthur Morgan, which isn't like overstated and overshadows him as a character. It's simply a small, very small section of what and who Arthur is. You can see it in the way he treats, people of different races, right? He doesn't discriminate, basically. If he sees you as a friend, you're his friend. If you're a foe, then you're getting that bullet in your eyes. I'm sorry. To me, that's a very good way to, input progressivism if that's what you want to input in your game. Make it very subtle, because the character isn't just one thing. Many different facets of a character that people can latch onto. And Arthur is a great example of that. Now, since Arthur was an orphan, he didn't have a family, obviously. However, the gang acted like a surrogate family for him. And this is one of the things that pushes Arthur to work so hard for the gang. It is his family, basically. It's the only family he's known. Now, since Dutch and Hosea raised him, basically, he was very loyal to the gang. And he really wanted to help all of the people a part of the gang to, live a good life for themselves, find success in whatever endeavors they're trying to do. Arthur Morgan tried to help as many people as he could throughout the story. However, even though he liked everybody in the gang, there are a few people that he didn't really trust, like bitch boy Micah. Now, initially, Micah did come off as a villain, but later on, he kind of fleshed out himself to be a pretty unique and interesting character, I'm not gonna lie. Even though he's still treacherous, like, he's an understated villain, but he's written really well because he's supposed to be sly, in the dark, in the shadows, and you don't really see that guy, right? You're not supposed to really be aware of Micah and what he's doing because he's trying to do everything under the quiet. So I think they did that really well with Micah. Now, throughout the game, one phrase is actually thrown Arthur's way quite a lot. He's a small man with a big shadow, something to that effect. But this is a very interesting metaphor for him, and I think you can interpret it in many different ways. The first way that I like to look at it is Arthur Morgan is a small man by comparison to the persona that he has created. Basically, this means that the reputation that he has in the world as being an outlaw in the Vanderlyn gang, because he's known as the powerhouse of the gang, right? That really seems to overshadow him as a person and who he truly is, because throughout the game, he's not just an evil bad guy trying to kill everybody in sight. He's actually going around helping people. He's trying to do the best that he can for his gang. But all of that is overshadowed. Well, all the good that he does is overshadowed by his evil and dangerous persona. If you come across this man, you may very well die. And he will be the one to do it. A second way that I like to look at it is the fact that Arthur Morgan is a good person at heart. A good man. But that is small by comparison to the shadow. And the shadow is all of the evil deeds that he's done. He's killed so many people. It overshadows the good person that he is. Because at the core, I do think Arthur Morgan is a good person, but He's living in a time where, he has to struggle for basically everything. He didn't have a fair shake at life. So he basically became an outlaw. And that outlaw became the big shadow that overshadows the good things that he's done. Because there are many people in the game that Arthur Morgan helps. At the end of the game, when you're playing as John, and you go meet many of the other NPCs that Arthur Morgan has helped, all of their lives actually got better. Every single one of some of them got rich, some of them started businesses. It really does seem like he made a lot of positive impacts to the people that he met. Well, the ones that lived at least. Everybody else got shot straight between the eyes. That's what I did. So my personal favorite interpretation is that Arthur and his actions, that is the small man. But the shadow, that is actually Dutch and his orders, right? Because throughout the game, Arthur does things to help people. These are small actions. But the bigger and grandiose actions that Arthur is known for was all orchestrated by Dutch. So there's a disparity between Arthur and what he wants to do and Dutch and what he orders Arthur to do. Right. Throughout the game, you're going to notice all of the big grandiose schemes that Dutch comes up with usually ends up in disaster, right? But Arthur gets known for that. The whole gang gets known for that. So I like that interpretation of the little man, big shadow. It seems more interesting and it makes more sense to me. Now, at his core, Arthur Morgan is a man of duty and loyalty. Duty to trying to do his best for the gang and its members, but also loyal to the gang and specifically Dutch. But the problem is he's loyal to a fault. He does everything that Dutch wants him to do. However, he does go behind Dutch's back to try and help other people in the gang to get away when he notices things are getting too hot. Arthur Morgan isn't an idiot. He's not stupid. But what's so interesting here in the story is the fact that Arthur Morgan is loyal to Dutch because he sees Dutch as a father figure. It's very hard to break out of that mindset, right? It's not something that you can just turn off. And you can see that in how Arthur is depicted. Even though he knows Dutch is going off the rails and he knows that what he's doing is, wrong, he always follows Dutch's orders. He questions and mumbles and complains, but he still does it because he's a loyal and dutiful person. But also, I think he personally feels like he owes Dutch because no one else wanted him. Now, later on in the game, Arthur Morgan actually gets tuberculosis. And what's ironic about that is the fact that he got it when he beat up one of the first people that you meet in the game. So basically, someone owed the gang money and Arthur Morgan went to pay him a visit, beat him up, and the guy had tuberculosis. So cough, cough, he got the TB. After Arthur Morgan got tuberculosis, there were different points in the game where Arthur Morgan couldn't move. He would cough and walk very sluggishly. They really sold you on the idea that tuberculosis was a very dangerous disease and it was messing him up. It's very similar to Nier Automata, where 2B was actually infected with a virus and she couldn't move that well. I really appreciate game designers implementing something like that so that way this badass character that you've been using and building throughout the game does have a weakness, right? So you're not all powerful. It lends well to the story too. So after getting diagnosed with tuberculosis, what was interesting was that Arthur Morgan changed. And he changed in a way that was very interesting. He exacerbated or displayed the better aspects of his personality. So when he realized that he had less time and less energy to do things, he focused on the things that were more important to him, and that was helping other people. So he would help different people by trying to get them to have a better opportunity at life. He actually did this for multiple people in the gang. One example is giving away money to some of the gang members and telling them, hey, leave, get out of here. Things are going to get worse. You can't stay here. But he stayed because he wanted to help Dutch. But he wanted everybody else to be safe.
Miss Tilly. Here. Take this. You take this money, too. Take Jack, and you wait at Copperhead Landing for Abigail and Mrs. Adler.
Thank you, Arthur.
You're a good girl. You live a good life now, you hear?
All right, Arthur. I'll miss...
Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Jack, come here. Be brave, son. I'm gonna go get your mama.
Also, he specifically helped. This is so cool. I never played Red Dead Redemption 1, but he helped the protagonist, the future protagonist of Red Dead Redemption 1, because this is a prequel. He helped John and his family to get out of the gang securely so that they could have a better chance at life. That was so cool to me. And in him doing that, that was hopefully a way of him helping John to have a family that Arthur didn't have. He consistently tries to help people in any way that he can. And in this way, I think he's trying to get the family that he never had through John. Maybe. That's a possibility. Now, the TB diagnosis also put Arthur in a weird situation where he had the opportunity to think about his life and all the mistakes that he's made. And in one specific interaction, he actually got the opportunity to speak with a nun. And at this point, he shared, some more intimate details of his life with the nun. And he shared that he was unhappy with a few of the choices that he made. He thought that he was a stupid man. Nun assured him he's not that dumb. He's like pretty smart compared to all the other people in the world. And I think so too. He's not an idiot. But with the looming fact that death was at his door, he also shared that he was fearful. He was scared. And to me, seeing a character like Arthur Morgan, a literal powerhouse, right? This man could do anything in the game because you're the one doing it. But to see the character say, hey man, I'm scared. And it makes sense for him to be scared. He has an illness and he's going to die at any point in time. And he's realistically, he's going to die before he actually sees the story through. And he did die. He didn't get to see how everything played out. But it's interesting to see that a character can be written with faults, with positives, but also elicit that sympathetic response in me as a player to be like, oh, wow, I understand that, man. It is quite terrifying, the situation that you're put in, because he's fearing for his life, which is going to go at any point in time. He's fearful for, what's going to happen after he dies with everybody in the gang being chased by the cops. But he's also fearful of what is Dutch going to do? Because he keeps making the wrong moves and members of the gang keeps dying. So of course he's worried. The family that he's tried so hard to protect, it's going like that. Everybody's dropping like flies. All in all, it seems like that tuberculosis diagnosis, it got rid of the facade that he had, of being a tough guy, of being basically unstoppable. It really showed that, shit happens to everybody. You're not immune to anything. And even though it's a game, I really appreciate them putting that in the story. Now, even though Arthur is a man that, he's very powerful, very capable, he's strong in the hands of the main character, he has issues that make him feel more like a real person. For instance, he's not that easy to get along with. I can tell that he's a kind of ornery guy. It's kind of hard to talk to him. He's also pretty abrasive, right? But he's kind when he needs to be. The thing is, like, when it comes to other people, like men, he's really aggressive with them. But with, ladies and children, he's pretty nice. Not that bad of a guy. But when it comes to men, like, you're a danger first in the eyes of Arthur Morgan. It makes sense. In the West, everybody that was a guy was pretty dangerous because they had guns and shit. You didn't know who wanted to rob you. But even then, like, when he talks to women, he's kind of got an abrasive nature about him. And you can see that in a love interest that he had. Not going to tell you the name, right? You can play the game, realize it for yourself. But he did have a love interest, and she came to him multiple times for his aid. But you can tell that it was very hard to love a guy like Arthur Morgan. He has a prickly personality, I'll say that. Even though he's quite honorable, good in a fight, he's not a sweet talker. Now, even though he's made a lot of mistakes, he's tried to remedy them. He's actually tried his best to make amends for certain mistakes that he's made in the past. But he also understands that some things you just can't change. And, the past is the past and you got to keep moving forward. It's kind of interesting to see that, even though he has that philosophy, he tries his best to put things in place so that other people can have a good life moving forward later on in the game. So he practiced what he preached to some degree. Now, to me, one of the biggest faults that Arthur Morgan has is his loyalty to Dutch. Even though later on in the game, he realizes that Dutch was trying to manipulate people for his own gains, he was willing to just kill in cold blood. Even though Dutch actually preached against that. At one point in the game, you actually could go in and find Dutch's little notebook, and you could see that he was practicing his speeches. So even though Arthur has his suspicion, he found out that Dutch was actually a very manipulative person. Like, he was proactively trying to manipulate people, and it worked. But Arthur still held out hope that Dutch could hopefully change and go back to the person that he was. And there's also the aspect that maybe this was the person Dutch always was. It wasn't a change. This was just who he was. So it's hard to tell with Dutch. That's a great aspect to have in your villain, right? You're empathizing with him because you want to hope that he does actually have a good side. But there's that mystery of, is he actually a good person making bad choices? Is he just misguided? Or is he so good at manipulating people that he's manipulated himself and everybody else to go along with his stuff? Because at the end of the day, Arthur and everybody else were basically going along with Dutch's plan, which was basically empty. He didn't have anything. He was just riding on the seas of his pants. Yeah, everything was just... he didn't have a plan. Yeah, he was making it up as he goes along. But I don't think anybody else realized until it was too late. Now, at the end of the game, depending on how much honor points you have, you get a good or a bad ending. I got the good ending. In the good ending, that entails you basically proving to Dutch that Micah was a dirty rat, but also you helped John to escape, go with his family, and live a good life. Granted, he's still being hunted by the law. He was able to live a, somewhat decent life. Now, the bonus of the good ending was the fact that Arthur got to beat the shit out of Micah. And it's such a thrill to see. Does my heart good. And even though Arthur had tuberculosis and Micah was making fun of him for it, Arthur was able to beat the shit out of Micah with tuberculosis after like a final gunfight. Yeah, it feels good, right? It brings some solace to know that Arthur Morgan was able to hold his own against Micah. It's great. And not only that, he proved to Dutch Micah was indeed a rat. But it was a sad ending because Arthur does die. And even though he died in one of the most poetically pleasing ways. Granted, it was sad, but after having time to think, it was quite pleasing. So Arthur dies on top of the mountain, beating the shit out of Micah, and sharing with Dutch that Micah was a rat. But when he died, he said to Dutch, I gave you everything I had. That was quite sad. So even though he was dying of tuberculosis, and you could see his chest pumping up and down and slowly going out, he died watching the sunrise. He didn't die in the cold. He didn't die in the rain. He died bathing in the sunlight. And the sunlight, I believe, is a metaphor for all of the good possibilities and opportunities that he's provided to so many other people in the game. That to me is fantastic, right? Very good, heartwarming, but at the same time, real. At some point, if you're living the outlaw life, you're gonna die by the bullet or by tuberculosis. That's so cool to me. The only thing that could kill Arthur Morgan was tuberculosis. Micah couldn't beat him. Dutch wasn't gonna touch him. And all of the enemies that you fought in the game, man, come on, they couldn't beat you. They couldn't beat me. Got that aim. I got an aim labs video. I got good aim with guns. But, all in all, I think it was a fantastic game. You should go ahead and play it for yourself.